You have heard dozens of things that supposedly fix your gut. Probiotics, apple cider vinegar, kombucha, some powder your favorite influencer is selling you this week. It is noise. So let me show you the one plate that actually changes what is happening inside your intestines on a real person, not in theory. Maria was 47, a composite of a pattern I have seen in patients again and again, not one single case. No diagnosis, no dramatic symptoms, just bloating after almost every meal, a stomach that never quite felt settled, and a tiredness she had stopped even mentioning to her doctor because she assumed it was just her age. And 10 weeks after she started eating this, her gastroenterologist could not explain how much calmer her gut had become. But I can, because I was the one who built the plate with her. So here it is, 6 ingredients, 1 plate, and each one is on there for a specific reason, backed by research. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to put on your plate tonight. And there is one ingredient at the very end that surprises almost every patient, and I will show it to. It is not yogurt. It is the very last thing you sprinkle on top, and I will get to why in a moment. At the wall of your gut, not in theory, but in the tissue itself, under a microscope, in real patients. So let us not waste time. Before I hand you the meal, you need 10 seconds on how a gut actually gets inflamed in the first place. Because once you understand this, every ingredient on this plate will make sense instead of being another thing some stranger on the internet told you to eat. Think of the lining of your intestine like the inside of a screen door. When it is healthy, the mesh is tight, nutrients pass through in a controlled way, and everything else, undigested particles, certain bacteria, toxins, stays exactly where it belongs. But chronic stress, a diet low in fiber, and repeated exposure to ultra-processed food starts to loosen that mesh over time. The gaps widen. Particles that should never cross into your bloodstream start slipping through, and your immune system reacts to that leak with a low-grade inflammation that runs quietly day after day for years. And here is the part most videos skip entirely. That inflammation is not just a gut problem. It is one of the reasons people feel foggy, tired, and puffy without any single symptom being dramatic enough to send them to a doctor. It builds slowly, and it hides in plain sight. So the whole game is 2 jobs. First, tighten that lining back up so fewer things slip through where they should not. Second, feed the bacteria that keep the environment calm instead of the ones that keep it inflamed. Every ingredient on this plate is aimed at one of those 2 things, and I built it that way on purpose. The base of this meal is plain, full-fat kefir or a live culture yogurt. I'm starting here because it is doing something inside your gut most people have never heard of. Kefir carries multiple live bacterial strains, often more than a dozen depending on the batch, and those strains compete directly with the less helpful bacteria for space along your gut wall. When the good bacteria win that competition, they crowd out the ones that tend to provoke inflammation. Research on fermented dairy has repeatedly pointed to improved markers of gut barrier function with regular intake, alongside a measurable reduction in the kind of low-grade inflammation we just talked about. I want to be straight with you about something though. Most of that work looks at specific concentrated strains in controlled settings, not a random bowl from the grocery store. But the mechanism, live bacteria physically supporting the lining from the inside, is the same one you tap into from food. Kefir. This was one of the first things we changed for Maria. Every single morning, no exception, for the full 10 weeks. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now, I already eat yogurt and nothing changed. Let me explain why. Most flavored yogurts on shelves have so much. The cultures that were designed to help you were actually feeding the bacteria you're trying to eliminate. But only if the sugar is not undoing them at the same time. We will come back to that if you want me to. Go deeper on gut topics on this channel, the microbiome, the gut-brain connection, food sensitivities that mimic other conditions. Leave this video a thumbs up. That tells me to make more of this. Next on the plate, a large serving of cooked, cooled starch. Things like potatoes, rice, or beans that have been cooked and then chilled. Most people file these under plain, boring carbohydrates and move straight past them. Here is what makes them specifically powerful for your gut. Cooling a starchy food after cooking converts some of it into something called resistant starch, and resistant starch is not digested in your stomach at all. It survives the entire trip down to your colon, where your beneficial bacteria ferment it and produce short-chain fatty acids, especially one in particular called butyrate. Butyrate is essentially fuel for the cells that make up your gut lining. Picture that screen door mesh again. Butyrate is what tightens it back up, cell by cell. What we're learning about resistant starch consistently points to improvements in stool, consistency, and reductions in inflammatory markers over just a few weeks of consistent intake. So here's how to use it. Cook your potatoes or rice as you normally would, then refrigerate for at least several hours before eating. Even reheating afterward is fine. The resistant starch, once formed, stays intact through reheating. Now the dressing on this plate: extra virgin olive oil with fresh ground flaxseed and a squeeze of lemon. Extra virgin matters here specifically because it retains polyphenols, plant compounds that act as natural anti-inflammatories at the gut lining itself in a way that is mechanistically similar. Every spoonful you use quietly turns down inflammation at the exact site where your gut wall is trying to repair itself. Cheaper, more processed olive oils lose most of these compounds during refining, which is why the label matters more than people assume. On the side, a handful of berries or a small serving of cooked leafy greens like spinach or kale. These are there for the same underlying reason: they are two of the richest food sources of polyphenols and fiber together. Fiber feeds your beneficial bacteria directly. It is quite literally their food source. And the greater the variety of fiber sources you eat across a week, the more diverse your bacterial population tends to. Diversity, not any single strain, is one of the strongest markers researchers associate with a resilient, low-inflammation gut. A gut with only to become 2 or 3 dominant bacterial species behaves very differently than one with dozens. Now, the one I promised you at the start, the very last thing you sprinkle over the plate right before you eat: ground flaxseed or chia combined with a small amount of raw garlic, crushed and left to sit for about 5 minutes before it touches anything warm. Raw garlic contains a compound that only activates once the clove is crushed or chopped, and that compound has consistently been shown to support the growth of beneficial bacteria while making the environment less hospitable to the less helpful strains at the same time. It works from both directions at once. Most people expect the last, most impactful ingredient on a list like this to be some rare, expensive supplement. It is garlic sitting in your kitchen right now, and the timing of when you add it is what most people get wrong. Here is the part that saves some of you from doing everything right and still feeling stuck, still bloated, still wondering why nothing is changing. You can build this exact plate every single day and quietly undo all of it with 3 foods that most people assume are healthy. Flavored yogurt. Much of it is dessert wearing a health label, loaded with added sugar that feeds the exact bacteria you are not trying to crowd out with the kefir we talked about earlier. Buy plain, full-fat yogurt or kefir with nothing added and sweeten it yourself. It's with real berries if you need it sweeter. So-called gut health granola bars and cereals. Flip the box over before you buy. Most of them are sugar dressed up in nicer packaging with almost no meaningful fiber to speak of once you actually read the numbers. And the sneakiest one on this list, fruit juice. Even the versions labeled no added sugar or 100% natural. That sugar still hits your system in that one concentrated dose, and it is stripped of the fiber your gut actually needed from the whole fruit in the first place. An apple is excellent food. Apple juice is sugar water with good marketing behind it. None of these 3 will undo one good meal on their own, but eaten daily in the background, they keep quietly feeding the exact inflammation this entire plate is working to calm down. You end up one step forward, one step back, and it feels like nothing is working, even though half of what you are doing is right. And one honest thing before we finish, because I think you deserve honesty more than a perfect ending. Maria did not go from constant bloating to a calm, settled gut on a bowl of kefir and rice alone. She did not. That change came from looking at her sleep, her stress levels, and the whole eating pattern across the day, not from one single plate eaten once. I am telling you this because the worst thing I could do is let you walk away thinking one meal erases years of gut irritation. It does not. This plate is the foundation. It is not the whole house. So here is where I will leave you. Your gut is not sitting still, waiting for you to get around to fixing it. With every single meal, it is either becoming a little calmer or a little more irritated. There is no neutral setting, no pause button you can press while you figure things out. Most people spend years quietly feeding the wrong side of that equation without ever knowing it, without a single symptom dramatic enough to make them stop and ask why. Type gut in the comments if you recognize any of these signs in yourself. I read every single reply, and it genuinely helps me know exactly what to cover next on this channel. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Maria is a composite of clinical patterns I have seen across many patients, not a single real person. Consult your physician before changing any supplement or dietary protocol. Your gut is not just a digestive organ, it is the headquarters of your health.
Treat it like one.